Alrighty, everyone, welcome back to the first live stream of 2026. Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic, I don't even know what day it is. Wednesday? Pretty sure it's a Wednesday. Let's see what we have here in the chat. Glad to see you guys all in here. Catman, Jake, Pete, Weather Warrior, Christian, Pez. Let me go down a bit further. Caden, Lucy, Haley. Let's see, Helicity, Maddox, and everyone else who is in the chat who I may have forgotten to welcome, or if you are here and just not chatting, glad to have you in here as well, Jefferson. All right, let's switch on over to our main scene. See if everything's good. Looks good to me. It has been a while. It has been a while. It has been about 10 or so days since our last live stream. There's been a few things that, could have warranted a live stream, but honestly kind of just went a little bit more dormant than I probably should have from the channel. Very busy, very, very busy recently, and unfortunately I'm busy this weekend. So fingers crossed I'll be able to stream at least one of these days for you guys, just to be able to talk about it, at least even if it's for an hour. I really hope I will be able to fit in a stream somewhere, but the good news is we're live now, so I can at least provide you an update as is now. So yeah, pretty eventful risk here on tap for not only today, also tomorrow, but mainly for what the risk you're looking at now is for Friday. A very interesting setup and a decently complex one at that. I did a bit of a dive into it myself before stream, and the tornado threat is a very complex and conditional situation. It's a really difficult thing to forecast, especially when you're past 3 days out. So I'm surprised the SPC, if you didn't know, they had a day 5 slight risk for severe weather with this. Back on the 5th is when they highlighted that. And it is maintained to a day 3 slight risk. And really the same nearly the same areas that were under the slight risk 2-3 days ago are still in that slight risk for severe weather, which means the SPC is really still like right on the money with what they were thinking 2 days ago. So let's start with today's risk, which is our lowest end of the 4, because we actually will probably have a risk on Saturday as well. Today, not really a whole lot to really talk about. We have a very, very conditional threat for a spin-up tornado. There's no tornado risk highlighted. A little bit higher than conditional, but still could be, a little bit of a problem there for 50 to 60 mile-an-hour wind gusts today into the overnight hours. And then some hail also could be a little bit of an issue, upwards of about an inch, maybe even an inch and a half in diameter could be possible. And the main storms we're going to be looking at will probably be in the overnight hours for tonight into early tomorrow morning. And then once we go from about the 8 a.m. time frame tomorrow till the 8 a.m. time frame Friday morning. That's when this outlook is valid, right about that time frame. And you could see pretty big marginal risk. Thankfully, no slight risk added just yet. But unfortunately, we do have the big old 2% tornado risk. This is one of the larger 2% tornado risks we've had in quite a while. I think the last time we even had a semi-decent tornado risk was almost like 2 or so weeks ago. I remember covering something in just before Christmas, I think it was. It was either just after or just before Christmas. We covered a risk of 5% tornado risk. So it's been a little while since we've had a tornado risk, especially one that is that large of a 2% tornado risk. So we will likely end up with a tornado or two tomorrow just because of the size of that 2%, a very large 2% tornado risk. If you have a small 2% chance tornado risk, there's a lower chance for a tornado. The bigger that 2% gets, the higher chance somebody in that 2% sees a tornado. So we will likely end up with a brief tornado or two for tomorrow, somewhere in this 2% risk. And the area I'd be watching the most is back out here from the OKC Metro, back up through Tulsa, Fort Smith, Arkansas, all the way back up into probably Joplin, Missouri, and maybe even a sliver of southeastern Kansas. That is the main area I'll be watching late tonight, technically tomorrow morning, for the best chance of a tornado. And then tomorrow night, late tomorrow night, we'll also be watching the eastern half of this 2% tornado risk as well. And then there's also a chance for a conditional spin-up tornado down here in Mississippi. So really like 3 general good areas to watch here for the risk of a tornado tomorrow. And we're going to go ahead and hop into some model data on weather-wise here. We're going to switch to our 18Z HRRR composite reflectivity, and we're going to go ahead and pull this out so that way I can let y'all know generally what we are thinking here. So this is about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern time, and we'll probably see storms fire off between the 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time frame, somewhere west of OKC and very close to Wichita Falls. These will likely be elevated thunderstorms, so a bigger hail and wind threat, but as they progress further off to the northeast, especially as they get into OKC and near the Norman, Shawnee, Oklahoma area about 8 or 9 a.m., I wouldn't rule out a few spin-up weak brief tornadoes if we can get a more surface-based storm to plant. Right now, that doesn't seem likely, so I don't expect anything more than a brief spin-up tornado or two. I really don't think we'll see anything too crazy for tomorrow, but we'll have to see if we end up with more surface-based storms. And it looks like, actually, the HRRR here, the 18Z has uptrended. Last time I checked this, it didn't have these good semi-discrete storms. This is 10 a.m., and these storms look a bit more surface-based to me, just based on their profile there. Definitely have a bit of instability there. Dew points 62 and temps. Yeah, that is definitely way more surface-based storms there. So those would be able to cause a all hazards issue, possibly even a tornado or two. So in the early morning hours, I'd be watching that. General time frame, if you're in that white circle, is from about 7 a.m. Eastern, so 6 a.m. local, 6 a.m. local time, all the way till about noon local time. So it's an early morning till late morning event, and then most likely your threat is over by the time you get into your early afternoon hours, at least for Oklahoma. Then going through the afternoon hours here, going into 5 p.m., 6 p.m. tomorrow, not really a whole lot happening in our main risk area here, just some bean thunderstorms. There will be a chance for some isolated 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, 1-inch hail, and I wouldn't rule out a brief, weak spin-up tornado back up here, barely on the northern side of that 2% tornado risk, also into the marginal risk there, the 5% wind risk and the 5% hail risk, actually not going up that far. So main risk will be half-inch hail to 1-inch hail, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and again, wouldn't fully rule out a brief tornado up here in the afternoon hours, even into the early evening hours. And then as we go into the late evening hours and overnight hours, we'll have to watch for a conditional tornado threat back out here in Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Illinois. Those areas we'll have to keep an eye on for a conditional overnight tornado threat. And then by the time we get into Friday morning, we are watching down here for the conditional threat in Mississippi. So 3 different areas, 3 different timing. One is in the early morning, one is in the very late afternoon and evening, and then one is into the overnight hours, and then even into Friday morning. So that's all your timing for today's risk into tomorrow's risk. I have no idea what color tables I use. I just found it one day and stuck with it because I like it. So, Lucy, you asked what the timing was for you. I partially said that. So maybe 2 rounds for you. I'd say you're really in between it. You're in between both rounds. So this is the afternoon and evening round. And right now the HRRR has that staying maybe a bit to your north. And then the overnight round might be your best chance. So going towards like 7, 8 p.m., that might be your best chance for anything. We'll have to see if anything does fire or not. But I would be keeping an eye on that just in case. It doesn't seem like a good threat for severe weather, at least for your area, but it's something to just watch just in case. Henderson, Kentucky, please. I'll check it real quick. And then we'll go into Friday's threat. So Henderson, this is 4 a.m. Let's see. 4 a.m. Friday morning, I believe. Yeah, this is 4 a.m. Friday morning. You know what I just realized? This is crazy. I just realized I was wondering why this stuff looks so different than the HRRR, because I'm like, I looked at all of this earlier today and none of this was on the model run. I've been using the RRFSA model run, so that makes sense. But really, it's generally the same timing. It's just the HRRR is actually handling this probably a bit worse. Believe it or not, I like the RRFSA a little bit more, especially for tomorrow's event. I like the RRFSA a little bit more, and I don't know about Friday's event. We'll compare the two. We will compare the two for Friday's event, both the RRFSA and the HRRR. But yeah, for Henderson, you're looking at an overnight threat very early Friday morning. I think storms will be very weak, so I wouldn't anticipate much. You are in between risks for at least a chance of an isolated severe storm or two there. But I really wouldn't anticipate too much on Friday. Yeah, you're in Friday morning's risk. You can see this marginal risk here in the dark green. You're barely in that. So can't rule out 1-inch hail. Can't rule out 60-mile-an-hour winds. That will be a possibility. But the main threat will be heavy rain and maybe some brief gusty winds. Of course, a spin-up tornado, it can't be entirely ruled out up here. However, the chance that's way up here into Henderson, I highly doubt it. I don't think we'll have enough ingredients all the way up in Henderson to where a brief tornado is really going to be something you want to keep an eye out for. Friday could be wind-driven enhanced. I highly doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it. So let's go and move on into Friday's risk here. So this is moving into Friday morning. Like I said, we'll have to watch that southern risk area where we have that 2% tornado risk. If we look here, you can see that marginal dipping in. That's a 2% tornado risk there going into Vicksburg, Mississippi for very late tomorrow night. And then it converts into the slight risk for Friday. So we'll have to watch for a tornado risk out there. Not only in the early morning hours with that early morning convection, but especially in the afternoon hours. Now, this is a pretty aggressive run, to be honest with you. I do think overconvection is going to be a substantial issue, but even that, the RFSA run is still decently aggressive. You could see multiple semi-discrete to clustered supercells firing at about the 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time frame here across central Mississippi back through Louisiana. And then we continue to see a confluence band set up across southeastern Louisiana and southwestern Mississippi into the overnight hours, and that continues to fire multiple semi-discrete supercells throughout all day Friday into Friday night, and then even into Saturday morning. We still continue with a very weak confluence band here until the cold front comes through early Saturday afternoon. And you can see the cold front merges with that confluence band, and then it becomes a very, very weak, big line of just some rain going into Saturday afternoon. So I do think we'll have a risk for some isolated damaging winds, 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, maybe as much as 1-inch hail, and then possibly spin up tornado being possible in this area for Saturday, really from the morning hours all the way till the evening hours until those storms really weaken about 8 p.m. or so Eastern time. And then we will also have a risk for an isolated damaging wind gust or small hailstone back up here as well. But ingredients won't be nearly as good up there. Cape is very, very spotty. Some models show upwards of 250 Cape. Other models like the RFSA have next to nothing up there. So the main risk for Saturday will definitely stay towards the Gulf coastline of Alabama, western Florida, southern Mississippi, and maybe even into far southwest Georgia, depending if storms are going to die or not by then. Now let's compare the HRRR here. The 18Z HRRR. Let's go all the way out to Friday morning. So this is Friday morning. You could see a brief tornado won't be able to be ruled out with some of these little storms here across Mississippi and Louisiana. Nothing big. Once again, just a spin-up tornado. Can't be ruled out in the overnight hours tomorrow night, mainly into Friday morning. And then Friday afternoon, the HRRR is a lot less aggressive. You could see our over-convected slop mess up here. Big slop fest up there. But there's 3 different bands. You've got a cold front. You've got confluence band number 1 and confluence band number 2. Confluence band number 1 would be a spin-up tornado being possible, 60-mile-an-hour winds, 1-inch hail. Confluence band number 2 would be the main one, 70-mile-an-hour winds, 1.5, maybe even 2-inch hail, and then possibly a few tornadoes being possible there. And depending how this risk evolves, 2 different scenarios, the RFSA scenario and the HRRR, both are a bit sloppy, but it wouldn't shock me if we are talking about a isolated strong tornado threat for Mississippi into eastern Louisiana. I don't think it will be a very notable tornado threat, but I wouldn't rule out a strong tornado if we can really get a more semi-discrete storm to fire in one of these confluence bands here. Kind of like what I just circled there with the HRRR model run. If we switch to instability, you can see that warm sector stretches actually all the way up to Michigan on this model run. But the problem is we probably won't see any notable thunderstorms up there. Yeah, you can see it's very isolated storms all the way up to that area. But the main area really to look at for instability is that main warm sector, which is right in here. That's your primary warm sector. Right in that area from East Texas all the way up to maybe getting into western Alabama here at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Significant tornado parameter is absolutely screaming out here with that second confluence band in Mississippi and Louisiana. So really going to have to watch that to see how the morning convection evolves and to see if that may inhibit or possibly increase our tornado threat through the afternoon hours going into southern Mississippi and eastern Louisiana. And I didn't really check much on shear, but it looks like shear is absolute plentiful out here. And like I said, Cape is pretty good too. And then you do have a good lower level jet and your mid-level jet here. Big old soaring jet stream across the Central Plains, which this is not typically the best type of setup for severe weather by any means. You've got a very large, sharply positively tilted trough. So definitely not the best setup for severe weather, but right on that exit region, that right side, just in front of the main exit region, that's going to be the region to watch. And then obviously we are in winter, so there's going to be limited amounts of instability, so that probably won't pass. I wouldn't expect anything really that much past northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. So that confines really your main area to this region right in here. And then, of course, we already looked at the HRRR. So really, I would for sure 10 out of 10 times target like Brookhaven for a target area if I'm chasing this threat. Just based off of this kind of pattern recognition here, you're definitely going to want to go eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, somewhere out in this vicinity. And that's why I would target Brookhaven, because that gives you access to these sharp south routes on I-55. So that is definitely where I would go. Let's switch on over to College of DuPage here. Switch on over to College of DuPage just so we can get a gist of our troughs. That's good enough. Checking Streamlabs to see if this is, if you guys can see this good. It looks like you can. Something about tomorrow's threat is pretty unique. If we were in April or if we were in May, we would be looking at a major tornado outbreak potential for tomorrow evening across a very large chunk of the central U.S. Because what you have here is you have a setup that is very favorable for a fast-moving jet maximum across from eastern New Mexico all the way up through northeastern Missouri. It's really favorable for an intense type of tornado outbreak for Thursday afternoon if we were in a more favorable time frame. Even with it being winter time, our instability is still getting all the way up to Iowa. So if that doesn't show you how really amplified that trough is, I don't know what will, because it's January and we're going to have instability up to southern Iowa. If it were May or April, we would have a insane amount of a tornado threat for tomorrow. But thankfully, that is not the case. So very impressive trough. Very, very impressive trough. I mean, this would be if there was like a trough type of scale, I would give this probably like a 8.5 out of 10 because you're really going to have a fast jet maximum. The way that it comes from the southwest, goes over the southern Rockies and then pushes up to the northeast. Really, really good. And then you have kind of a slingshot bowling ball effect here from this larger trough in the Pacific Northwest. And that's what's helping to push it rapidly off to the northeast. And you can even see here how when it's down here Thursday morning, it really doesn't look that crazily amplified here. But then as you go into Thursday afternoon, you get a lot sharper of a negatively tilted trough in here. So very impressive trough. Very, very impressed by that. Really good trough. And of course, I would be, I haven't looked at this yet. This is the NAM 18Z. I have not looked at this. I'd be shocked if there's not a insane lower level jet response here across a huge chunk of the central US there. Yep. Look at that. That is exactly what I would be expecting. A ginormous lower level jet response across a huge chunk of the central plains. I should say central US, my bad. Central US. Huge, huge response there. And yeah, I mean, that's a lower level jet, upwards of 70 knots in some spots there. Actually, upwards of 75 in some spots, most likely. Between 70 75 max there. Look at the wrap. Not as impressive, but you could see, well, further out, yeah, it gets really impressive towards Friday morning, but thankfully that won't be much of a problem. There will be a brief conditional threat for severe weather up towards the Midwest Friday morning if instability can hang on, because we'll have extremely low cape and extremely high shear. So if there's any cape left over up here, wouldn't be surprised if we get some isolated severe weather. And sometimes with these very intense cyclones, a very, very intense cyclone here, we go from 1,000 millibar all the way down to probably almost the high 980s here. 991, very, very close to the high 980s. Sometimes the I can't say it, but the forcing, the large scale forcing from these troughs, they're so intense that they don't even need instability. So if this is the case Friday morning, this line you see here, even though there's like no cape, literally next to no cape with it, except for on the southern extent, it could still cause widespread 40 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts if it is moving quick enough, which it may be able to. So I'll keep an eye out on that. It wouldn't surprise me if we do have a large marginal risk on Saturday, because these can move so quickly. When they're moving that fast, they cause a lot of forcing behind them as they move so rapidly, and it creates widespread damaging winds. We had one line, I forgot exactly when it was, but I think, actually, I don't know exactly when it was, but I think it was like towards the last few days of December or one of the first few days of January. I mean, we had like severe warnings across a huge chunk. It was this giant line across a huge chunk of the U.S. And that was driven by like next to zero cape and an insane amount of wind shear and just forcing because of this. Sorry I'm admiring this trough so much, but it literally is like one of the more impressive troughs you can get. Often it is these more smaller, confined shortwave troughs that produce a better threat for severe weather. Sometimes your gigatroughs and your ginormous troughs that traverse the country. Sometimes there's a couple issues with them. Um, a lot of the larger troughs create an overconvection issue. Whereas, I mean, even with this, even though we don't have a lot of forcing, or rather, we do have, a lot of forcing, just not like a gigatrough type of forcing. You can see how semi-discrete to clustered these storms are. Like, if we just had a better environment, we would literally be dealing with an intense tornado outbreak tomorrow. But thank goodness we're not. Even into the overnight hours, look at that. Even in the overnight hours, you still have a really good look for tornadoes. So I wouldn't rule out a spin up tornado in this area, like I mentioned before, going into tomorrow night, but it's not something that's impressive due to the lack of instability. Oh man, I mean, it is just insane because I know I'm admiring it way too much, but sometimes I have to. Because your cold front's way back here, so you just get these convecutive prefrontal bands, almost like large confluence bands out in front there. It literally is like large confluence bands out in front that are just going to sit in front of that cold front for like all day. Literally all day. And if it was just simply more Cape, man. More Cape. You know what this kind of reminds me of? Just the look of this reminds me of like April 2nd, 2025. Just the kind of look that reflectivity has, with everything being like light on precipitation, and then it ends up getting a bit more overconvected in the overnight hours. March 14th too. Yeah, really, I would say more of April 2nd with that, honestly. April 2nd, but less instability. That's how I would word it. And that's all it takes. All it takes is less instability, and boom, pretty much all your severe threats gone. That's literally all it takes. Like, there's so many. Weather's pretty fragile. Temperatures, dew points have to be a really good amount. They can't be too high, can't be too low, can't be too far apart. Instability definitely can't be too low, but sometimes it can't be too high, or it can cause an overconvection issue. You can't have too much forcing, but you can't have too little forcing. You can't have too many storms, but you can't have too few of storms. So fragile. It is so fragile. And you even can't have too much wind shear. Sometimes with these larger troughs, you can have too much wind shear, and it actually shears the top of the thunderstorms off, and it inhibits them from growing into large supercells, and instead they stay as miniature supercells. And then of course you have 3 Cape too, which is very important. I mean, look at even the 3 Cape is insane. The 3 Cape is really, really good, but the normal Cape is very mid. Look at wow. Even with the lack of Cape that we have, significant tornado parameters are at like a 7 out of 10 over here. Even with the lack of Cape, we have like what, maybe max 900 Cape here. Yeah, 900 Cape here. So imagine if we had 2000 Cape, dude. We would be maxing out on some of these supercell parameters and the STP. That's insane. Take a sound and you'll see the inversion. There's not even that crazy of an inversion though, which is like, I think it's, what I really think it is if we go back to the wrap, I think it might be a bit of a mistiming on your trough, because your main forcing mechanism comes through about 1 to 2 p.m. That's your main forcing mechanism there. And you could see like that moves off up into Illinois. So that would be like your main target area if you were chasing this, would be up in this area here. You would be following that maximum amount of forcing maybe on the southern end of it, because if you get too far south, if you get down here, storms probably aren't going to fire much down there. So you can't be too far south. So it's a bit of a mistimed trough, because you could see your main cold front is way back up here. This is moving quickly off to the northeast. And then this is almost like a stalled cold front back down in here. So I think it's a lack of forcing on the far southern end of this in the overnight hours. Now, midday, this would be a intense tornado outbreak if we were again in April and had more instability. But with the setup that we have, even going into the overnight hours, I just simply don't think there's enough forcing down there to get storms to really pop off to do literally anything. Again, I wouldn't rule out a brief tornado in eastern Arkansas in the overnight hours, but really not too concerned about it. And then this is our trough here using the WRAP model. This is our trough that's going to cause our severe threat going into Friday. So you've got this large trough here, really centered over the southern plains and the far western southern U.S. That's the area where our main trough's located there. Sorry, I got a bit distracted. And again, just like I pointed out with the RRFSA model run, we have a very positively tilted trough here. But if we go to the 700 millibar, we should have some sneaky shortwaves in there. And I do see a main negatively tilted shortwave right in there. This is for 23Z, which is about 6 p.m. Eastern time. And that's where your main shortwave trough is. And you can see your cold front is directly behind that. Your cold front's like, give or take right in there. So that shortwave is what's also going to help with our confluence bands, because that's going to help. Also, this high pressure is going to help a lot too, because you have a high pressure down here, which is going to push all of our ingredients up. And then you have a low pressure up here, which is also going to help push all of our ingredients up like this. So even this setup would be really, really good if we just had a bit more instability, which I think we will. Like if you go to your global models, the GFS, that shows quite the lack of instability at max 1000, maybe 1.1K. But these more cam allowing model runs like the NAM, that has upwards of, what is that, like 1600 right there or something around there? Oh, almost 2000 actually. 1900 right there. And then the NAM 3K model run has over 2K across southern Louisiana. And then the HRRR, that's a big difference in your warm sector. Big difference in your timing. Look at that. So the NAM and the HRRR agree a little bit. Not much really at all. The WRAP and the NAM are semi-agreeing with that placement of the cold front. So that's something we have to figure out for sure. How fast that cold front's going to be. Because if that cold front's faster, you can just say goodbye to much of your severe threat through the day, because it's just going to wipe out that confluence band. But if the cold front is slower, then that will allow for those confluence bands to increase more of a tornado threat. Your cold front here, if you just follow the change in your wind direction, I almost want to say, yeah, it's like, let's go to temperatures. It's doesn't look like a very strong cold front here, but you can generally see it's like right up in there. That doesn't feel like a cold front. Huh. I feel like your cold front should be more to the west than that, but I suppose that's where it is. Because like the HRRR has your cold front being there. Yeah, that's because the HRRR is faster. Yeah, so that is generally where your cold front is. Generally where I drew that line. A very rough estimate of where your cold front is. Whereas if you go to like the NAM, now your low pressure's back here, your cold front's back here, and you can see a warm front that is developed back up in there. Two really completely different setups, to be honest with you, between the NAM and the HRRR. Because the HRRR, again, that warm front located generally back up in here, and then your cold front located quite a bit further to the east. So the HRRR portrays a substantially more favorable environment. And you can see that depicted here with that. Let me get a different color. Right in here with these higher numbers for a supercell composite. Upwards of, I think that's like upwards of probably 10 there. That's 8. I see 8 right there. So yeah, that's 8 supercell composite, which is really, really good. And then your STP here, also pretty good as well. Not like insane, but it is at about 3 to 3.5 in some spots where those supercells are. So HRRR portrays a pretty good environment. And if we go to, let me just see here. Does the NAM 3K? Okay, the NAM 3K, different big time with how this front progresses, but you could see how it develops the best environment, probably off to the south. And it's not in that line. It's not in that line. Like with the HRRR, it was really in perfect alignment with that confluence band right in there. Whereas with the NAM, it's a little bit more spread out. And that is why, if we switch to reflectivity, really not a whole lot happens on the NAM 3K until the overnight hours. We are at midnight Eastern time. And then you can see we do finally get maybe a mature storm or two out here. But really not the best setup on the NAM 3K. And that's because your cold front is actually very far west, probably too far west. And your cape also doesn't get pushed up far enough. Your favorable instability doesn't get pushed up far enough. And yeah, your wind shear is really not a problem. So you can see like where that confluence band is because of your wind shear, where your wind shear is weaker over here, and then it starts getting closer to your low pressure. So like this would be the area on the NAM 3K where it would be a no-go for targeting 10 out of 10 times. And whereas the HRRR, similar, but further to the east with that cold front. So again, really two completely different setups, to be honest with you. HRRR may favor a bit more of a messier mode for the confluence band, but we would get a higher tornado potential, whereas the NAM 3K favors a very sloppy mini supercell threat for severe weather. So I wouldn't expect an upgrade from the SPC. I do think we will see a 5% tornado risk. I would expect that at the day 2 outlook tomorrow morning. I would expect a 5% tornado risk to be outlined across Mississippi and Louisiana. Not sure how far south. If I had to guess, I would start with like a 5% tornado risk, decently small right in there, generally in that area for Friday. And even like that is really like the main area where our tornado threat's going to be. That's really the main region to watch. Oh yeah, I did want to get into that. Thank you for sending that. Let's go to Oklahoma here. Go to the HRRR. So these are the elevated storms I was talking about here in the early morning hours tomorrow. This is the 12Z HRRR, so it is one run further back, but you could see more elevated storms here. And if you switch to ingredients, really not much ingredients here, which is why I say these are elevated. Even though the temperature dew points are very close to each other, almost the same, these are likely elevated thunderstorms because of the lack of instability and really decent wind shear. So I wouldn't rule out a tornado for sure with that, honestly. Even if they are more elevated, you definitely could still see a tornado or two out of that. But on our new run, the HRRR got rid of much of that. And you could see maybe just one or two storms that produce 1 to 1.5 inch hail, 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, and maybe a spin-up tornado tomorrow morning across central Oklahoma. And then that main threat, that more conditional threat, really doesn't develop on the HRRR. The RRFSA had that more conditional tornado threat being apparent. If I just show you back with WeatherWise here, just show you what I'm talking about. We go to the model runs, go to the RRFSA, go to 18Z and bring this out. You can see in the afternoon hours of tomorrow, right, let's see. Yeah, like right in here, it develops those thunderstorms a lot better. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Late morning hour. Late morning hours here, about 11 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. Central. So it develops it a lot better than if we go back to the HRRR here. HRRR does not develop that nearly as well. You see it's just a big slop fest, but still wouldn't rule out a brief tornado with both the elevated storms in the very early morning hours and the elevated storms being a bit more conditional in the late morning hours. And also the environment is completely different too. Like the environment looks a lot worse on these newer runs compared to the older runs. Because if we go to like the 18Z HRRR in the morning hours and just kind of take a screenshot in your head of that, right? Mostly green, pretty much no yellow. And then we go to the 06Z HRRR and you can already see some yellows poking through here. Also, timing is different too. So the older runs, like the 06Z, very aggressive on the 06Z. Look at that. Stupidly aggressive on the 06Z. My goodness. Very, very aggressive with that, but no thunderstorms develop. I tell you, literally, if we just had a little bit better forcing and we were in a completely different month, we would be looking at like another March 14th or April 2nd type of event here. But thankfully we don't. And you can see big downtrend on those ingredients. Now, again, wouldn't rule out that spin up tornado threat in the afternoon hour in eastern Oklahoma, but the main thing to watch is probably more of that overnight hour time frame, really into tomorrow morning. Northwest Alabama, Friday night into early Saturday. I wouldn't expect a whole lot out there. Now, we are far out still. But most models that I've seen show that just being an overconvected mess. I really don't see any good threats for severe weather in Northwest Alabama. Just a lot of heavy rain. I think I would be a lot more concerned about flooding in Northwest Alabama. Where that confluence band sets up, that's going to be a big issue in Alabama. Obviously, the tornado threat will be a bit bigger of a problem down here, but flooding will still be an issue. But especially in Northwest Alabama, you really don't have to worry too much about severe weather. It's mainly the flooding threat, from what I can tell, at least. Now, that could easily change. I mean, gracious day, the GFS just absolutely... Woof. Big problems there, that's for sure. But I would definitely be watching that flash flood threat for sure. Maybe even up into my neck of the woods. I got to go check here. Let's go see our flooding outlook. Now, I do know the SPC has you in a slight risk. I don't know if they'll drop that. They may just play the safe game and keep you in a slight risk for... I'd be shocked if it is for anything other than damaging winds. I think we will have a decent-sized 15% for damaging winds across much of this area. And then I think we'll have a small corridor back in here where there'll be a 15% hail. And then maybe even a smaller corridor where there's a 5% tornado risk, where that confluence band sets up. Now, the 15% hail and 5% tornado risk may overlap directly over each other, or the hail risk may be a little bit larger than that 5% tornado risk. But that's what I'm anticipating. And I don't think we'll see an upgrade to an enhanced risk for a 10% or 10 sig Tor, unless the only semi-possible way I see a 10 sig Tor occurring is if we see an HRRR solution where we get that very potent environment. And a little bit less over convection. But I do think the confluence band will get us a 5% tornado risk. I just don't feel like we will see anything higher than that. It's not really, I don't think it's an enhanced risk setup at all. I don't think it's an enhanced setup whatsoever. For any hazard. I know the CSU Severe already has a 10% risk for tornadoes out in eastern Mississippi. I don't know what that thing is on, but it's stupid. It's not too smart. That thing's dumb. I don't know why it's highlighting eastern. Like, it's highlighting far up to like Columbus, like in this area is where it has the highest tornado threat. So I wouldn't be listening to that. That thing's... It's not good. The only thing CSU is semi-decent for is looking for long-range chances of severe weather. Whenever it gets to, like, once it gets to the day 3 time frame, it just tends to be horrible. This is the RFSA model run, and I really don't see anything like... all models really keep the main tornado threat with that confluence band right down in here. Now, the RRFSA may spread that slightly more to the west, back out here. But the main region is by far southern Mississippi. Yeah, I like CSU for the day 4 through 8 time frame. Specifically, the day 4 through 6 time frame is where I like it the most. And then I really don't like it on the day 3 outlook, day 2 outlook, and day 1 outlook. It just doesn't seem to be good, in my opinion. So we'll see what changes tomorrow. Like I said, I'm very busy the entire weekend from today. I was swamped today. I'm so glad I was able to get a live stream in. But really, I was busy today, and I'll be busy all the way till like Monday morning. And I was busy for like the last 3 days. I've just been swamped, absolutely swamped with stuff. So, yeah, normally it does slow down. Like for some reason, the winter months, I tend to be a lot more busy. And then once we get into spring, it's like normally things slow down in my personal life, and that allows me to stream a lot more. But we'll see how this tornado season goes, because there's some stuff that I'm changing in my personal life. So I don't know if I will be covering as many events as I did last year this year. I wouldn't expect as many live streams this year. Last year, I was really live streaming a lot. I made my goal last year to stream more. My goal this year, ironically, is to stream a little bit less, to be honest with you. So we'll see how that goes. I'm definitely not going anywhere yet, but YouTube is kind of being pulled back a little bit. I'm starting to push it out a bit more, which has been very evident by the lack of content over the last week or two. So, yeah. What are you going to be busy with? Really, Ponderosa, it's more of my physical health, to be honest with you. Now, this weekend, the past couple days, it's been family, and the next couple days it will be family, but in the future, it's more of my physical health. Turns out, sitting 12 to 16 hours a day on weeks on end is not healthy for you. Who would have guessed that? I tried my best to, off of stream, I tried my best to walk around and exercise more, but it wasn't enough. But yeah, I want this to stay as a hobby. I know YouTube last year definitely felt a whole lot more like a job, and I really don't want it to feel that way. I want it to feel a way like how it felt today, where I can hop on here when I want and I could just chat with you guys and talk about the weather. That's what I love. I don't like getting in the mindset that I have to live stream every single marginal, and I have to live stream every slight, and I have to live stream every single 2% tornado risk. So, but yeah, like I said, it's going to slow down a bit, but it will not stop. It will not stop. There's probably going to be a couple risks that I do cover for 10 to 12 hours, but not nearly as many as like last year. So I just wanted to let y'all know that ahead of time. I was thinking of making a video on it, but if I made a video on it, I feel like people would think that I'm quitting YouTube. That's not the case. I'm just simply going to slow it down a little bit. I appreciate that, Kevin. Our community here typically is very supportive when I like to take breaks. So I appreciate you guys understanding that. I do still plan on covering higher end risks. I will definitely plan on that. But those, I've also thought of like, for higher end risks, if I know I'm not going to be able to live stream the event, I'll just go live really early in the day and then, talk about the risks, just at least making you guys aware of the risks. It's just the covering part is what hurts me, because that's 10 to 12 hours. That stuff's bad. But like just coming on here and doing an hour briefing is absolutely fine. Doing a video or two once or twice a week is absolutely fine. I did take a decent long break, Weather Warrior. I took a few decent long breaks in the last 2 months. I told Lucky that I was thinking of just not uploading in December. That didn't go well. But thankfully this inactive weather time frame happened. So I really had a break on accident. Like there was literally, I know we had a blizzard I did a little briefing on, but really there hasn't been much to talk about until now. We had that quick little tornado threat in late December, like December 28th. But we really didn't have much from, honestly, going all the way back to Melissa in mid-October. Really from mid-October all the way till still we're continuing with a more inactive pattern. We really haven't had a lot of activity. Wasn't that, I think that December, I feel like that December 28th was an enhanced. I feel like that was a 10 sig tour in eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas. I believe I remember that now. I swear that was an enhanced risk. I gotta go look. I remember we covered, or maybe that was an event before. I'm gonna go back and see what risk that was. Okay, that was the slight risk up in Illinois on the 28th. The enhanced risk I just talked about, I remember a enhanced risk. Was it in early December? I forgot when that was. Ain't no way that was September 20th. Wow. I am so far off on my days. No way. That's actually September 23rd. Why was I thinking that was an enhanced on December 28th? My bad. Yeah, December 28th was the tornado threat mainly in Illinois. For some reason, I can't. Oh, I do recall that. I remember that. I remember that tornado threat now. That had like that was that weird velocity signature that separated into like 3 different CCs. And then later the day, we also had another deep CC drop with barely any velocity. And then we also had a few spin ups overnight in southern Indiana that I wasn't live for. Yeah, we ended up with like 10 or so tornadoes right around there. Yeah, but September 23rd, that was our last enhanced risk. That's why I was mentioning the enhanced. It wasn't December 28th. For some reason, I got those 2 days mixed up. That was our last enhanced risk. And then we had Melissa not too long after that, about a week or so after that, we started tracking Melissa. And then 2 weeks after that, Melissa was peaking or so. Right around mid-October. And then from mid-October all the way till now, it's really been inactive. Again, we did have that one risk on the 28th of December, which that hit tornado outbreak criteria, which is right about 8 tornadoes. Small scale regional tornado outbreaks can be as low as 6 tornadoes, but typically 8 or 10 plus tornadoes is a small scale tornado outbreak. But really, people don't remember tornado outbreaks until they get up into like the 50 to 100 tornado range. Like March 14th, April 2nd. Last year was very, very crazy. This year, I saw Catman talking about, not talking about tornado season because it is still far out. That is still the case. But we are only about like 40 little. I think we're in the. How far are we? I'm just going to look it up. I'm going to look it up. We're about 70, 71 days till tornado season. 40 days from now is something different that I was thinking of that me and Lucky were talking about. Man, my brain is all over the place, ain't it? Yeah, I think about 70 days. About 70 days is tornado season, and I don't see it being anything insane. It's probably going to be average. It really there like last year there was a lot of signals at this point where I was like, yeah, this 2025 is probably going to be a pretty good tornado season. And then I made my forecast I think I made it one day after Trey, so I think it was like February 28th or February 29th. I made our tornado season forecast for 2025. And I went pretty high in on that. I was going above average on much of the Midwest and verified nicely. Verified nicely. I know my forecast didn't verify. I know West Virginia didn't verify for West Virginia, and I know it didn't verify well for the northeastern U.S. And then Iowa just wasn't existing in tornado season. Tornadoes just forgot about Iowa. Aside from the huge moderate that was an absolute bust on like the 28th of April or right around there. Thank you for the $5 donation, Weather Warrior. I know assuming isn't always good, but do you agree that Melissa was 195 at landfall? Also, just post when there's a decent severe weather risk. Yeah, really, that's why I've been inactive this winter is because I've been mainly just focusing on severe weather and the huge blizzards. But yeah, Melissa, in my opinion, was 195. Obviously, my opinion doesn't matter a whole lot, but I do think it was greater than the one. What did they have it at? I forgot what they had it at. It's been a while, but I know it was tied for Labor Day. Like did they have it at 180? Was it 185, 180, somewhere around there? 185. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with it going up to a 195 at landfall. And I'm pretty sure the highest wind gust recorded in a tropical cyclone worldwide was inside of Melissa. And I think that was like 252 or 253 miles per hour recorded by Dropzone. I do remember a Tori. Was that in where was that in Iowa? I do remember just tracking a Tori. I feel like it was like southern, like somewhere in here. It was some random Tori that I really was not expecting. Essex? Yeah, I think that's it. Pretty sure. Iowa. Yeah, down here. I knew it was Southwest Iowa. I knew that. Yep. EF1. Man, that is crazy. Tornado emergency in Iowa, and it was rated EF1. Well, that is really good news because what it means is it was a violent tornado, but it hit next to nothing. Still haven't fully. It hasn't fully set in that we had an EF5 last year. I know like we talked a lot about it, but it almost feels like it kind of slipped by that it was upgraded to EF5. It just doesn't feel like there was an EF5 last year. It really didn't feel like there would be an EF5. And talking about that, it being rated EF5 was pretty controversial, but honestly, now that we've gotten an EF5 rating, I don't want to say it like this, but we got it kind of out of the way. It's now possible to get an EF5 rating. That will hopefully open things up to better research in the future on whether things should be upgraded to EF5 or not. Because it took a freaking train cart to be lofted a couple hundred feet for us to get an EF5. I knew it would be something big, but I didn't think it'd be a whole train cart. So, I mean, that's the best way you can get an EF5, though, a train cart. I was thinking like a major metropolitan gets hit by a violent tornado, but a train cart is probably the best way to get an EF5 rating. Minimal damage, minimal people injured. March last year, I remember I had an enhanced in North Carolina and I barely got anything. Welcome to North Carolina. Welcome to North Carolina. Enderling did deserve the EF5 rating. I agree with that. It hasn't like set in with me yet that we've gotten an EF5. Because like every now and then I'll just remember, oh yeah, 2025 had an EF5. and it was in it was in North Dakota. Like that is like the last state, one of the last states I would probably pick for a tornado to be rated EF5. Of course, the entire western tier of the US, I'd never pick any of these for an EF5 to be happening at, but like the least places east of the Rockies, one of the last areas I would think for an EF5 is like the far northern tier up in here. And then probably like up in the Northeast. And then maybe Florida. Those would be like the three areas I would highly doubt we'd get an EF5 rating. But we somehow got one in North Dakota last year. Yes, we were live during that EF5, and I remember the scan. I remember the scan. I remember exactly how it looked. I remember exactly what my reaction was too, because I was absolutely shocked. It blew me away that we could have a velocity reading that high. And it went from like a strong tornado to a high tier violent tornado in one scan. I wonder if, let's see. I wonder if they opened this back up. The servers were down on the NextRad archive from the National Weather Service. So I wonder if they are back up. I gotta go try to find this link. It's somewhere in my saved stuff. It should be... should be up here with my April 27th, 2011 case study that I did last year. I just realized I'm in the wrong thing. That's why I can't find it. I'm in the entire wrong section. There we go. I think this was the radar. I forgot exactly which radar we used. June 20th, 2025. I just want to see if they have the data. Nope. Still down for maintenance. I don't know if that's ever going to come back up, actually. How many years have you been weather watching? How many years are you active? How many years are active? And are there ever years that don't see any tornadoes, or is it a regular annual occurrence? Every year always has a tornado. Every year will always have a tornado in the U.S. Some are substantially less tornadoes. Others are substantially more. And there's still a lot of research that is going into that. A lot of research on a daily basis that's being put into that. But of a lot of what has to do with tornado season is with our bigger patterns, our widespread patterns in bigger basins, like the Pacific Basin. We watch temperatures in the northern Pacific Basin and in the central Pacific Basin, and whichever waters those are and how they fluctuate sometimes can give us a general idea of how troughs are going to react. Then we also watch the Gulf as well, the available energy in the Gulf, which is probably going to be above average for 2026, considering we didn't have any hurricanes in the Gulf last year. That should allow for more energy in the Gulf this year. The Gulf will probably be a bit more prime, so we'll probably have more available potential energy. So we watched, like, those are the three areas. Also the Western Pacific too. There's a few areas. Western Pacific, but specifically the Northern Pacific, the Central Pacific. Those are the two big areas. And how many years I have been weather watching? I've been doing weather on YouTube for about 3 years. This channel was a gaming channel back in 2020, 2021, 2022, and half of 2023. It was mainly a gaming channel and a kind of slop channel. And then in 2024, early 2024, late 2023, I went full in on YouTube. And as for when I started watching weather, that would be in, I kind of slowly started in 2020. I've really loved weather all my life, to be honest with you. I've been tracking it like all my life, but when I really started getting into it was 2020. I started slowly getting into it and kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool. There's kind of like websites and softwares you can track the weather with. And then in 2021, my first real event that I sat down and tracked was the 45 significant tornado risk in Mississippi and Alabama in April in 2021. So I really got into weather in 2020 and 2021. And then really started, live streaming it in 2023. Yeah, Legacy, you've been around since 2021. You've been around since one of the first live streams that I ever did. One of the first weather live streams was Mayfield 2021, December 10th. I was live, me, Lucky, another friend, DeAndre, who's frequently still comes into this channel every now and then, and a bunch of other people in Discord server. We were all tracking December 10th, Western Kentucky live. And that was one of the first live streams. 2022. I remember you being here for the New Boston tornado. Caden, I'm pretty sure that was November 4th, 2022, right? Pretty sure. I know you were here for that tornado, but you were probably here before that. I deleted most of them, and if not deleted, I privated them. I did keep up one of my old live streams, but to be honest with you, the older live streams were copyrighted, frequently copyrighted because of I didn't know copyright back in the day. The longer you go on YouTube, and especially I was pretty young. I was like 15 when I started live streaming, and I really didn't know anything about copyright. So once I got older and figured out copyright was a thing, I privated those videos and stuff, those videos and live streams. And no, before you ask, it was not because of chaser feeds. A lot of it was because of Lucky. A lot of the copyright stuff back in the day was Lucky. I did not steal live chaser feeds. I never did that. I never showed live chaser feeds without permission. And we had Connor for a good year and a half or so. That was absolutely awesome. We had him for a little over a year. But yeah, of course, Lucky would be the one to cause the copyright issues. But I never got any strikes or anything from it. But just because some of it was, some copyrighted material that I was kind of 50-50 on. I'm like, I don't know if Lucky should have showed that, or I don't know if I should have played said song or something. And none of it ever got it copyrighted. I just went ahead and privated them and deleted them just because. And most of that was before I was even making money on YouTube, but yeah. Yeah, the oldest live stream I have up, that is actually my first live stream. I have up my first weather live stream, August 28th, 2020. I cannot believe that was streamed on a Chromebook with a crappy browser streaming service on like browser. I can't believe that is still up. I cannot believe that is still up. I'm so glad I didn't delete that one. So if you ever wonder where I came from, go watch that live stream, and I'll sound like a different person completely. But yeah, like I said, most of the old live streams were just deleted just in case of copyright. Again, nothing was ever copyrighted. It was just in case it was copyrighted. I wanted to play it safe. Just in case. Legacy, also thank you for 28 months for your membership. I know I'm very late to that, but I just remembered. So thank you for being a member for that long. Gracious day. That is a long time, Legacy. That is a long time, man. Long, long time. Kevin, I know. It's just strange to watch it happen. It is. To go all the way back to 2020 and then see how I've progressed over the years, not only as like personality, but also with weather information. I know it is not even close. If you went back 6 years and told me what I would be 14, told 14-year-old me how much I would know about the weather in 6 years, he'd be like, nuh-uh. That is insane. 14 years old starting live streams. I don't recommend that to honestly anybody. I don't recommend that to anybody. I was very lucky to have strict parents. I know a lot of people have strict parents and they find it annoying, but my parents kept me off of most electronics till I was 13. And if that didn't happen, I would have not had a childhood. I was really, really lucky to have strict parents. And that was like my live streams on YouTube back then. I would go live once every 3 to 5 months. Once every 3 to 5 months, I would go live back then. And I think I would make like 2 to 3 minute videos, like once or twice every month. So yeah, that's when I had no schedule. Yeah, I didn't track May 20th, 2019. But I've looked back at obviously some data and stuff from it. I've watched plenty of things about it. Matter of fact, I watched one about it the other day. I always like watching documentaries about tornadoes. I'd like to wait to make one myself eventually about 1 or 2 tornadoes, but they take an insane amount of work. That's why whenever I see one, I click on it and I sport them because I know it takes just a tremendous amount of work to get one video out on a documentary. And I know there's an AI slop channel going around. Be careful for it. I don't know the name of it, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because I don't want you to go watch it because it's AI slop. But there is a AI slop channel that is literally, I don't know how it's not like taken down. Speaking of copyright, the laws of copyright are so horrible. There's no lines anywhere with copyright. But this AI channel is literally taking footage from other channels and other documentaries and putting it onto their own channel and then putting like some literally almost word for word copy of another video. So say like, I don't want to say any YouTube channels, but just think of a documentary channel and how that said person talks. The AI would take the word for word script of that person's video, take footage from other chasers and other people's content, and it would mix that person's script mixed in with other people's chasing footage. And it's still up. I don't understand how it's still up. A bunch of chasers, I'm sure, have reported it and tried to file stuff against it, but it's still up. It is still up. It's absolutely stupid. It's so dumb how an AI, obviously someone's got to be behind the AI, unless it's literally just a fully ran AI channel, which I only know one of those. But it's so dumb. It is really, really dumb. Crazy rant, I know. I don't know how there's 60 people in here listening to me rant about copyright. But really, our copyright laws, I looked into them because, like I said, I got a lot more familiar with copyright over the last few years. They are horrible. There is no line anywhere with copyright. Which is why on this channel doesn't grow because I don't use other people's footage. I don't use other chasers' footage because I don't want to be copyrighted, and I also don't have a lot of money to pay chasers. And I don't use traffic cams because there's a bunch of copyright on that. So you got to be really careful, man. I wish it was just a live stream ordeal where you can click stream and show whatever you want. But you also got to think of it from chasers' perspectives. A lot of people don't think of that. When you are live streaming on your channel other people's content, you're taking away their money. That's why people give you copyrights. because you're taking away their profit, how they pay for gas and they feed their families by showing their live streams on yours. So you got to put yourself in their shoes. You're not going to want, if you get this once in a lifetime footage of a tornado, you're not going to want everyone to show that on everybody's live streams on every major social media platform for free. You're going to want to make some type of profit off of it, so that way it's, you can continue to get better and have better equipment and get back out there and pay for gas. Traffic cams are free to view. However, when you get commercial use like this channel is, they are no longer free to use, and you have to directly contact every single DOT management office that operates with those cameras, which typically can be done pretty easily, but keep in mind, 50 US states. And I don't have time to go through 50 different emails to get permission from each one, and they can obviously still deny it. So, and then for other individual cameras, now there is Hazcams. I've got to attempt to contact them. I was supposed to contact them earlier last year, and I completely, utterly failed to. So, yeah, some cameras are easier when it's owned by like one person. They'll just say, hey, pay us a set amount, and then you can use 50, 100 some cameras. Like Hazcams is really good with that. Which I'm pretty sure Hazcams is right here, literally on Weatherwise. Yeah, all those cameras. Man, they've expanded a lot. Big time expanded. I remember when it was just like a handful of Hazcams in Northeast Mississippi, Northwest Alabama. A lot more there. December 15th, 2021, theoretically verified as an unhatched 30% tour. 100%. Yep. 100%. I remember tracking that on my old laptop. That is still to this day one of, if not maybe the most impressive event I've ever tracked. Another close second still is April 26th, 2024. April 26th, 2024, December 15th, 2021. Two events that are just insane in my mind. And then obviously now March 14th too. There's so many. But like if I had to make a list, I'd say really December 15th, 2021 is probably like almost number one just for overall. Cause like you had an insane blizzard, insane fires, insane dust storm, insane tornadoes, insane derecho. It was absolutely crazy. And then April 26th was much of the same. Just a little bit more of a concentrated tornado outbreak. And by the way, the area hit between December 15th and also April 26th, 2024 was nearly the same area. Pretty sure December 15th and April 26th were both started in western Iowa, eastern Nebraska. And December 10th, 2021, a lot of that, I know a lot of people are going to say that's a very memorable one. I remember that because it was one of the first major events I tracked. Really, those two, the 45 hatched risk in April 2021 and then December 10th, 2021. Those were two major events I tracked. But it was really one supercell, really like one or two supercells on December 10th that made the whole outbreak. Obviously, the notable one, which tracked all the way from like Jonesboro all the way back up into northern Kentucky, and then another one near Clarksville through Bowling Green. And then actually, now that I think of it, I remember watching a YouTube video and someone was talking about strong tornadoes up here. So I think December 10th, actually, I don't remember as much as I think I do about that risk. So I'm going to go look at it. I probably don't remember as much as I think I do about that threat. December 10th. Yep. Way, way more widespread. Now, obviously, you can see the exact two supercells I was talking about. There's the two. Oh, and actually a third one, too. 3 main supercells. 1, 2, 3 main supercells. And then a couple spotted tornadoes back up in here, and then 2 random ones down here. Yeah, this is the... I remember watching either a documentary or a case study on these tornadoes up here. The forgotten tornadoes of December 10th, 2021. And of course, this is the main area we all remember. I remember watching that storm start near Little Rock, Arkansas. I remember that. If that happened nowadays, man, I would be losing my mind. That was an insane supercell, man. So many people impacted by that. Hello, Hoop. Welcome to the stream. We're getting close to ending. If you're wondering why I have been stalling a bit, because I was supposed to be ended stream 20 minutes ago, Convective Chronicles is going live in 40 minutes, and I would love to raid his live stream. He goes live at 8 Eastern. I'm going to end at 7:30 Eastern. So we're going to raid his live stream 30 minutes before he goes live. So that way he can have a little bit more viewers. I don't raid people often at all, but any day of the week I will raid Trey for sure. 10 out of 10 times. I'm going to go ahead and set that up so that way I actually don't forget. YouTube decided to change a bunch of stuff on the... like how you edit things, so I gotta figure out... okay, there it is. YouTube changes stuff so much, and 90% of the time, it is for the worse. Redirect to other channels. Convective. There he is. Because I'm subscribed. Sweet. Oh, man. You know what? He doesn't have it enabled. I forgot how you enable that. I remember trying to get lucky to enable it and it wouldn't work. But we finally figured it out. So, instead, I'll just put a link in chat right when we're about to end. So you guys can go watch him. So, it won't be an official raid, unfortunately. But we'll raid him the best we can. So, yeah, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and put them in chat. I've got about 3 or 4 minutes here. And then we'll start ending and we'll half raid Trey. Because we can't full raid him. I wish it was just on by default, but I see why people don't want it on. I'm sure he's just not aware that it's not on. Also, just another random rant for anybody who's wanting to get into weather. If you don't want to make a career out of it, or even if you do, really regardless of what you want to do with weather, I would highly recommend Convective Chronicles. Even if you don't want to get like a meteorology degree, which I'm still 50-50 on, then you can literally just go watch his channel live stream. You'll learn so much. Nashville is on the edge of the slight risk. Right on the edge of it. And to be honest with you, I think they're going to pull this slight risk back a lot more. It really wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow the slight risk is like this big. It would not shock me if they remove much of that northern side of the slight risk. Maybe even smaller than this. To be honest with you, I really don't think a slight risk is needed outside of like this area right in here. That's really the main area I'd say a slight risk is needed for. Oh, Christian was trying to ask something. Sorry, I don't look at chat. For like the first 30 minutes of the live stream or so, like the first 5 minutes of the live stream after the music's done, I'll look at chat for a bit, and then I go on normally like a 30 to 40 minute rant about what's happening. And then the last couple minutes of the live streams typically I'm looking at chat. But obviously I finished my rant about the weather like almost 30 minutes ago, so see, did the morning convection on April 27th, 2011 in the northern part correlate to the environment to the south? It definitely did. It definitely did to some extent for sure. But the biggest thing that it did was knock out a lot of tens of thousands of people of power before the main event. So that convection was really, really early on to where it didn't have a huge effect on the afternoon's environment. But the biggest impact that was the tornadoes, and especially the damaging winds that happened in the overnight hours that knocked out everyone's power. And then people couldn't get weather radio warnings. People couldn't get phone alerts because their phones were dying. And it just really was a really, really bad ordeal. You should go for a degree. You are knowledgeable. You would do well. I'm 50-50 on it. I may. Let's see. We will see. Stormfront Freaks, welcome to the channel. Glad to see you in here. Thank you for the kind words. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Really appreciate that. What's your thoughts on tornado season this spring and summer? I think it will be, right now, I'm kind of thinking it will be average. Once we get to late February, I'll be able to really see and give a decent look towards it. I was at Walmart. What did I miss? A lot of yapping. The usual weather stream. There's nothing too big over the next few days. Mainly watching Friday for the risk of a few tornadoes in eastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi. That's the main ordeal. Few other sleeper risks. The only reason why I'm kind of iffy on going for a degree, well, there's a few reasons, but the reason I'm going to say here is one of them, is math. I feel like there is a lot of math. I love math, but maybe not to the extent of meteorology math. Like, that is very, you're getting really into math. Really, really deep into math. Kaylee, welcome to the stream, by the way. Glad to see you here. Not judging, but I feel like you were out a little late at Walmart. I don't like to be out in winter past like 4. I don't like to be out of home past like 4 p.m. I'm one who does not like to travel much at night. Unless it is for storms. I'll do it for storms. But not if it's nocturnal storms. The only way I'm doing it for storms is if I can get there in the day and then travel home at night. But if it's a nocturnal threat, no. Blame my husband. See, now that sounds like a reason right there. That's why. Snowstorm hitting England tomorrow. Cover it. I would rather... I would rather not. I'd say something else, but I'm not gonna. I would rather not, though. Did you say... you said England. Man, I don't even know how to get model data up there. England. I'm trying to think what part of the world that's on. It should be... here. Oh, they don't have precipitation type for it, so I can't even see what type of snow we're talking about. Okay, there it is. I see a few areas of snow. I see one over the UK. Yeah, I see that one. That kind of looks like it will be. Ooh, that's going to be big for Manchester. That should be pretty big for Manchester, huh? I wish I could. Maybe I can. Maybe we can. You never know. Let's see if weather-wise possibly. Oh my goodness, look at that. Well, looky there. Weather-wise with the New England data over here. This is snowfall depth here. Which doesn't seem to be the most accurate, to be honest with you, because this only says, like, not even close to as much as what our the GFS was saying. Why is this in meters? I honestly have to change that quick. I can't change it. I don't see a way to change that. Well, it's in meters, so do the math if you will, but I won't. Yeah, because the GFS on Tropical Tidbits is saying, like, a substantial amount of snow. Like, that's close to a foot west of Manchester, which is over here. So, Manchester's probably not getting a whole lot. Gracious day. Who would have guessed there's snow on the ground in Greenland, huh? Why is it what? GFS has a little dusting coming through on the morning hours of the 11th. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. This is precipitation type for the 11th here. That's rain. Yeah, that's rain. I don't know what the GFS is doing. I see a little bit. Oh, there's a little bit of snow right there. You know what? I know what it is. Aha, there you go. I still don't see much snow. Maybe a little bit of back-end snowfall there, but nothing crazy. How far south does that data go? Ooh, good question. Let's go to Antarctica. Oh my goodness. It goes far enough south, and I guess it goes far enough north too, huh? I know you guys can't see it as well. There you go. That's a lot of snow. Man, I want to go there. I rarely get a good snowstorm. How much is a meter of snow? Gracious day. Is that like I'm gonna look it up before I say it because I don't want to be dead wrong. $39 inches. 39 inches. I was gonna say 36, so I would have been 3 inches off. 39 inches of snow. But I'm sure there's a whole lot more than that. It's just simply not reading it. Well, no, it is reading this. Gracious day. That's got to be near 50 inches right there. French name storm. I hit the southern part of UK tonight and tomorrow afternoon. High winds, rain, snow. I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce that name. Because if you've been on this channel for really any amount of duration for any type of severe weather coverage, you'll know I butcher just about any name there is known to man. We're going to extend the live stream a little longer, just a bit more, because just to get it closer to when Trey starts at 8. So we'll go for a few more minutes. Let me see here. YouTube just told me I'm live on my channel. Why? Thank you. I had no idea that I was live on my channel. Let me see. I'm going to go up further, see if I missed any questions when I wasn't looking. I don't see much, so it looks like I'm pretty good at reading. Looks like I'm pretty good at reading. Why did it give you a notification for your own channel? I have no idea. I guess I'm subscribed to myself or something. It's on my main account too, so I guess I really am subscribed to myself. Yep. I probably butcher it. I butcher names probably more than him at this point, honestly. Hey, there is thousands of names that you have to try to learn to pronounce for weather. So you're going to forget a whole lot of them. And the worst thing is a lot of them are like the ones that are spelled the same have different pronunciations in different areas. Like the Western US may pronounce a said town name different than the Southern and the Northern and the Eastern US. So that's another problem too. How many moderate and TOG, take a guess on how many moderate and if you think it will happen, a high risk in 2026. Gracious. I was just about to say exactly what weather just said right there. I was about to say 3 moderates and a high. How many did we have 2025? I feel like we had a lot. Let me see. Let's see. Let's see. 2 high risks, obviously. Huh. 12? No way. Yep, Kim, I haven't tracked in this area. Like I don't track weather often, so like these names, any names in this area other than like Manchester and London, any other name I'm probably gonna absolutely butcher. I might have just butchered both of those for all I know. Yeah, so apparently we had 12 moderates in 2025. I'll go a little bit higher than the other person. I'll say 5 moderates and 1 high. The only other thing I would do is like 5 moderates and 0 highs. I wouldn't do 2 high risks. That's rare. We had 2 high risks last year, and that is a rare occurrence. Typically, it is 0 or 1 per year. Oh my goodness. I can say that in my head, but if I try to say it out loud, it is going to be absolutely butchered. Well, the only way to know how spring 26 is going to turn out is to live through it. 2025 honestly played out generally how I was expecting. The only thing I didn't expect was an EF5. But 2025 was generally what I was expecting. We had a high risk in the deep south, and then we had a high risk in the central US / kind of deep south. It was right in here. Right in there. We had 2 high risks. And then we had plenty of moderates as well. I'd say the two things I didn't expect for 2025 was Iowa being so far below average, and then us seeing an EF5. But yeah, we're going to half raid Trey Convective Chronicles. So in about 2 minutes or so, I'm going to post a link in the chat, and that will be Trey's live stream that starts in 20 minutes. I'll be watching that live stream most likely as well. I may not chat in his chat, but I'll be probably watching it. So if you did enjoy this live stream, I know it was a bit of a longer one, so I appreciate especially those who stayed for the entire live stream. Not typical, we do an hour and 45-minute briefing, so I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate the mods from on chat. I will try. I'm not going to make any promises. I will try to do another live stream between now and Saturday. Between now and Saturday, but I am absolutely packed. I know for sure there will not be a live stream Saturday. I am going to be completely busy Saturday. And I know for sure there won't be a stream Sunday. Football. And so the only chance for a live stream is possibly tomorrow, which I doubt it, and possibly Friday, which I doubt it. So we'll see. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in once again. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for the support. If you haven't already, make sure you leave a like on the live stream and share this channel and stream with your family, friends, social media. It's really, really appreciated. Again, I'll post a link in the chat to Trey's live stream because it won't let us rate him because he has that turned off, which is probably by accident. So stay safe, watch for your weather, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye. stay safe, and I'll see you in the next live stream or video that I do. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night. Goodbye.